morning, everyone. So it'll be to around, so that'll be easier. On just leveling the grounds and getting it for me to actual path. So that's next Saturday at 9 a.m. And then we have a second work day of mindful working in November. I believe it's November 20th, but it's also a Saturday. That pretty much all the finishing, putting in the flower beds, the benches, the signs, just making sure it's nice and pretty, right? That way, it'll be, which is on December 11. So it's a full day retreat, which is 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So don't be alarmed. It's not that early. Come in. So for those of you that have joined us for that retreat, you know that it's not as bad as it may sound sometimes, but 11 at 6 p.m. you do have to complete the registration online to do that. It's a free retreat, but there is a questionnaire that needs to be completed prior to you attending. So if you are interested in participating in the retreat, please make sure that you register online. And you can find our Facebook page or our website. The 20th posted to 12 o'clock instead of 10. We will be out of town that week, so I just want to make sure I have enough time to gather my thoughts before the class. So next Saturday, the 25th, our class will be at 12 p.m. Lastly, since I've just realized 15 minutes ago that I forgot to announce this class, which is my fault because we've been out for a month, so I kind of forgotten the normal things when it comes to announcing. Regardless, after this class, since today we are remembering 9/11, we will have a short prayer blessing after the class. So if you're interested in participating or joining us for that, we'll do that right after this class. Okay. Now to actual stuff. So classes cover the 5 hindrances. The 5 hindrances that we all go through during meditation. These are the hindrances, the obstacles, the difficulties that we encounter during meditation. And these hindrances, we've covered already the first two, which are desire or attachment, ill will or aversion, and today we would cover a sloth and torpor or laziness. And then, of course, the last two are restlessness and worry, and the fifth one is doubt. So fortunately, I've calculated these classes out perfectly. Finish the 5 hindrances, we can cover the 3 main meditation methods before our retreat. So that way, when we have the retreat, you have a whole you have a recipe to have a very fruitful retreat day, since we'll be sitting for quite some time in meditation. So I hope that by learning and knowing these hindrances, being aware of them, and to try to eliminate them with the methods we've already been discussing and practicing for the past couple of years, which theme is honing or strengthening our concentration through mindfulness practice. Okay? So, okay, I'm going to stop talking, I'm never going to stop. So, Sloth Torpor, laziness. We all love laziness. I think I love laziness more than most people do because I have very little free time. And so when I do have some free time, the only thing I want to do is to do absolutely nothing, right? So, but in meditation, as far as it being a hindrance, laziness is just essentially the absence of wakefulness, the absence of alertness. It's essentially an imbalance in our energy when we are trying to meditate, right? Because we really, during meditation, or as we develop our practice, we really want to find that balance between tranquility and being able to be free of thoughts, let go of those thoughts, to really be able to sit in peace and quiet, and a balance of also being alert, being aware, right? Typically, the tranquil part comes first in our practice because it's easy to find a very comfortable position. It's easy to be in a very quiet place. It's easy to just be able to sit and do nothing, right? But it's more difficult to be aware, to be alert of things like distractions or the sounds or feelings and sensations, right? A lot of the time, they are feelings of aversion, right? We feel pain in our knees, we feel pain in our back, we feel pain or discomfort from a thought that has arisen. And so we ignore those, right? We kind of put, no, I don't want to deal with you right now. Let me just peace. So that, which is another of the other hindrances, aversion, where we are pushing away these thoughts. So yesterday, actually, I was at a doctor's visit, and he was asking me what I had going on for the weekend, and I said, I have a meditation class tomorrow. I have to, go and stretch out for it. And he kind of asked, what's meditation? Like, how do you meditate? What are you meditating on? I'm like, oh boy, I can literally write you a book. Actually written a book. Do you want it? Because it's a very big topic, right? It's a very loaded question when you ask what meditation is. But essentially, I was like, listen, there's a misconception about meditation where you have to sit and completely clear your mind, right? You're completely zenned out. You're not thinking of anything whatsoever. And that's really not the point of meditation. Sure, that's the ultimate goal, is to be able to sit and not think and not be distracted. But for right now, your object of meditation is to acknowledge the thoughts that have arisen, right? Acknowledge, be aware that you're being distracted. Be aware that you are hungry, or you hear someone walk through the door and walking upstairs. We're having some construction workers now. So you're being aware, you're not bothered by them, right? Because what happens now is, like Leon, he's wondering what they're doing, right? He's looking around, he's like, what are they doing? What are they doing? In meditation, you want to avoid that. In meditation, you want to be aware that someone has just opened the door. The door has opened. You give that label. The door has opened. Someone walked in. I hear sound, right? You're not playing a mental story in your head. What are they doing? Where are they going? Who's with them? Did they bring enough tools? Did they bring enough supplies? Right? You're not creating a story. Because what happens when we create a story is we are creating fiction, right? We're making up something. And so what happens when we do that, even in everyday life, if we hear our next door neighbor right? We hear an argument go on, right? There's a fight, there's a party, whatever it may be. We create this story in our mind of what's going on, what's happening. We are assuming how their life is. We're assuming that they're in trouble. We're assuming that they have fun. And so we create this story, this false story in our head. And then maybe one day we meet them or we figure out actually what happened, and it's completely opposite of the story that we made up. And so now you're kind of disappointed. You're like, oh wait, that's really not what I thought would be happening or how I thought you would react, or whatever it may be, right? Our expectations are now gone. Our expectations are different than what we anticipated it to be. And so it can be something very simple or something very elaborate. But the point is, if we are able to practice being mindful and being aware and not being sucked into these stories that we create, then we're really able just to see things as they truly are without having to create this falsehood story, right? So instead of figuring out what the workers are doing or who they're with or what they have, simply just acknowledge that someone walked to the door, right? So you can give it a label. So every time you meditate and something happens or something, you hear something, you feel something, whatever it may be, you want to give it that quick label: sound, smell, anger, discomfort, pain, right? You give it a quick one-word label. And you don't really want to think about it either. Whatever comes first, just that gut feeling that you want to label it, give it that label. Make it as easy and simple as possible, right? That way you're just giving it what is truly happening, which is the door opening, or a dog barking, or the TV is on, whatever it may be, right? You're not creating a false story. You're giving it, you're telling yourself what is truly happening without any falsehood behind that, right? Wow, I totally went off topic there. It has nothing to do with laziness. Anyway, laziness. So in meditation, as I mentioned, right, laziness or the sloth comes in part of an energy imbalance, right? Sometimes, depending on when you meditate, for example, if you meditate early in the morning or in the afternoon or in the evening, you may just be physically tired, right? Mentally exhausted, where sitting in meditation is just really just going to cause you to fall asleep, right? So part of meditation practice is experimentation, right? That's why for the last couple of years we've been over like a dozen different meditation methods and techniques to do. Not because they will all work for you or they're all the best or the most correct, but to give you an array of ways to be able to meditate, to see what works for you best, right? Because one method could work amazing for you, whereas the same method may not work for the person next to you, right? So it's the same thing when we're meditating throughout the day or different periods of the day, right? You want to see which part of the day works for you best. When are you most alert? When are you able to focus more? When is the right timing where there's less distraction, less noise, less sound, right, etc. So if the laziness comes in part because of physical exhaustion or tiredness, then that's something you can actually tweak, right? That's something you physically have control over. The other part of it is the mental part, right? The tranquility part and the alertness part, where, like I mentioned, being able to sit in comfort and at peace is so much easier than being able to really watch your mind, because that's really the point of meditation, is to develop that concentration, to develop the inner workings of our mind, right? I always say that we need to watch our thinking. It's much easier said than done, obviously, right? But part of that is really, because it's okay to think, right? People think they're meditating wrong if they're constantly thinking or being distracted. You're not doing meditation wrong. That's part of the practice. What you are doing wrong is if you're not catching those thoughts and those distractions, right? If you continually start entertaining those thoughts, right? So maybe you're sitting down right now, it's still early in the morning, right? Lunch is soon. So now you're thinking of food. You're like, where do I want to go? Do I want to pick up something on the way home? Do I want to cook something at home? Do I have enough ingredients? Blah, 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 right? You may think of food. Correctly, you want to be like, I'm hungry, and continue with your meditation, right? Versus thinking of what you needed to have, where you want to go, et cetera, right? That's the wrong meditation. But regardless, if you do start thinking about it, thinking of what you have, where you want to go, where you want to eat, if at any point you've caught yourself being distracted and entertaining this thought of food, then you've hit correct meditation because you caught what you're supposed to not be thinking about, right? So it may take a few seconds, it may take a whole minute, it may take up your entire session. But regardless, if you're able to catch and be aware of that thought process and being aware that you're entertaining these thoughts, then you've successfully meditated correctly, right? So it's not bad to think and to get distracted. You do want to be able to catch it eventually, right? And our mind is a muscle, so the more you work it, right, the more it starts molding the way you want it to be, right? It will take months, years, maybe a whole lifetime to really just shrink your thinking by like 1%, 5%, right? But that's still progress. So some people who are gifted can meditate easily and correctly in a very short amount of time, or it may take years, right? It's not an easy process, but it is something that you are able to see a difference in yourself, right? Because nobody can reach into your mind and dig through your archives and see how your how your practice is going. Only you know how it's going. So part of being able to see the change is to see the change in your everyday life. See the change when you sit, when you meditate, when you think of something, when you see something happen, right? Part of the laziness or the sloth that we encounter during meditation is because sometimes our life or our practice is very neutral, right? We go through habits and routines on a daily basis. We wake up, we eat breakfast, we brush our teeth, we shower, we get ready for work, we go to work, we come back, we eat, and repeat, right? It's a repetitive process. And so because it's a repetitive process, we can do these on autopilot without even thinking about it. It could be 8 o'clock in the evening, and we're like, wait a minute, did I even have lunch today? Did I take a shower? I don't even remember driving to work, right? Because things become so automatic, you're not being mindful of what you're doing. It just happens. And so you're really wasting time. You're wasting precious moments where you can really start being alert and aware of the things you do, right? And because things are so neutral, so habitual, we think that our life is so unpleasurable because we do these habits and we're on autopilot. And it's unmindful enough. But when you take a shower or when you cook or when you clean, these things can be very pleasurable to do. You can really enjoy doing those things in the moment if you're aware of those things, right? You can be eating an apple, right? And you're just eating an apple, watching TV. You're not being mindful of how the apple tastes, how it feels, right? You're not feeling the crispiness of it or the crunch. You're not enjoying what an apple could bring to you, right? And so you think your life is so regular because you're eating an apple, right? And then we start getting into the what if mindset. What if I had an orange? Maybe I'll be happier if I had an orange. So you go grab an orange, you're eating the orange. If you're eating the orange in the same way that you're eating the apple, without mindfulness, without awareness, without enjoying the taste, the feel, and the nutrition that an orange gives you, then you're just going to fall in that same routine. What if I had something better? My life is so ordinary. I'm so basic. apples and oranges. I need something more exotic, like a dragon fruit or a mango, right? So you go out of your way, you go to HEB or you go to like the Asian market and you find these exotic fruits. But even with this exotic fruit, if you're in the same habit of just eating it unmindfully, then you're stuck again in that same cycle, right? And so we become addicted to trying to find things that are pleasurable, right? Because once you have something that you thought was going to give you pleasure, and you're like, no, it doesn't give me pleasure, you're just going to constantly go and find something else, right? And so you're stuck in this addiction of just finding something, finding things, right? You have your dream job. After a while, you're like, you know what, I'm really bored. And so you search for another job. And you get in there like, no, I don't like this job either. And you search for another job, right? Same thing with phones, with the iPhones. Every year there's a freaking new iPhone. And so you're like, I have to have the next one. I'm guilty of that because I always want the new iPhone, but it's not about me right now. So you get the new iPhone, you get the new car, you get the new house, you get whatever it may be, right? You're constantly just going after more and more and more. Because we become addicted to things that we think will give us pleasure instead of just enjoying the moment of pleasure in itself, right? I'm so off topic again. Time is it? Okay. I didn't speak as long as I thought I did. So if we're meditating and we come across any of these hindrances, right? And so when we spoke about desire or attachment, right? We spoke of the antidote of meditating on impermanence, right? Because whenever we're attached to new things or to things, to anything, or we desire more, like we spoke, right? We desire a better job, a new car, a better phone, etc., etc. If we're able to contemplate and meditate on impermanence and recognizing that this new phone won't give us pleasure after all, this new car is eventually going to break down, this new house will eventually crumble down, right? Things won't last, right? But we hang on to them as if they will last forever. So when we apply the contemplation and the practice of impermanence, of them not lasting forever, then letting them go is much easier, right? So when a phone breaks, or your car stops running, or something in your house starts rotting away, we don't get so overwhelmed with anger or sadness because it's leaving us, right? You recognize that, yeah, this is something that's not going to last forever. I accept that. I know that. Let me just enjoy it while I have it. And so that way, when it does go, I'm not regretting that I didn't enjoy it enough, right? And then when we spoke about ill will or aversion, the counterpart or the antidote to that was to meditate on compassion and loving kindness, right? I think I used the example of disliking a new coworker, right? Sometimes, if we're sitting in the office and a new coworker comes in, walking with our manager, and they're going around, introducing everybody, without even meeting them, we're already judging them. I don't like the way they dress. They walk weird. They talk annoyingly, right? I don't know. Whatever it may be. We already make up excuses why we don't like this person before we even met them, before we even know what their name is, right? And so if we're mindful, we can recognize that those thoughts are arising in that moment before we start creating a whole storyline for them, right? And so, and that's the case for anything, even when we're meditating. If that type of thinking arises, or we're thinking that our meditation isn't good enough, or it's not working, we start to meditate on loving kindness for ourselves at that point. Or if we're thinking about other people or things, then we recognize the compassion and loving kindness towards them. And so for working with laziness or sleepiness, I guess, it's a little bit more direct, right? Because at this point, you're just tired. You're tired. You're lazy. You don't want to sit, and so you can add some practicality to it, right? So if you are falling asleep, for instance, if you're sleepy, you can open your eyes when you're meditating. You can stand up. It's very difficult to sleep when you're standing, I hope, right? Or you can do walking meditation or walk around, right? In a formal meditation sit, it's not always practical to do those things sometimes, right? Because you're in a place that has a schedule. But if you're at home meditating, you can do those things. You can walk up, you can stand up, you can walk around, right? You may be able to take a break or take a quick nap or have a cup of tea or something, right? Just something to kind of rouse your energy and get it back up, right? Or you can try a different meditation method, right? Commonly, when we're meditating here, we mention to focus on your breath, right? You can counting the breath is the most traditional way of meditating. So as you breathe in and you breathe out, you're counting 1, you breathe in, breathe out, counting 2, in, out, 3, etc., until you get to 10, and then you repeat. Or you can go backward from 10 to 1. If at any point during that counting process you get distracted or you lose count, then you start again from 1 and you work your way up again. So you can even change that up a bit, right? One of the methods that works for me best is to focus on the different areas of the body as you're breathing, right? So as you're breathing, you're focusing on the tip of your nose. You're feeling the air go in and out as you breathe, right? You're feeling the sensation of the air. Is it cold? Is it warm? Are you breathing fast, slow? Is it shallow, right? You're just being aware of how the air feels as it enters and exits your nose. So you take a few breaths like that, and then you move your attention to the back of your throat, right? As the air enters and goes. Is it cold? Is it warm? Blah, blah, blah. You're just focusing on that specific point of where the air is and how it feels. Then you move on to your lungs, right? You feel your lungs expanding and contracting. You're feeling the air go in. You're feeling the air go out. And then you move to your whole body, right? Feel your whole body just take in air. Feel all the oxygen going into little bloodstream and, doing all that stuff, right? You do that for a few breaths, and then you just reverse and go back. Whole body, lungs, throat, nose, right? So this way, you're not just focusing just on breathing in and out, you're focusing on specific areas of the body. So it gives you a little bit more energy. It gives you a little bit more awareness, alertness of how your breathing is, right? Hopefully, it will wake you up a little bit. I don't typically recommend to completely close your eyes during meditation. Usually want to at least keep them semi-open, right? That way you do have some light going in, and that light is typically, usually, enough alertness to help you focus, right? Because if your eyes are completely closed and it's all dark, you have no stimulus to help you focus or keep you awake to a point, right? So keeping your eyes semi-closed is the best way to go. But if it is more comfortable for you to completely close your eyes or completely keep them open, that's fine. The problem with keeping them completely open is that you may just get distracted by the things around you, right? If somebody walks up or walks in or walks out, or you see someone outside or a bird or plane or Superman, cross by the window, you get distracted. So you will only know you best, right? So like I mentioned earlier, meditation is an experiment, basically. a mind experiment, a body experiment. So see what works for you best. That way you have some sort of data to kind of make a trend of how your meditation goes. Otherwise, just stand up if you absolutely have to. When we have the retreat in December, I always complement sitting meditation with walking meditation because that will wake you up. The longest sit is 45 minutes, which I don't think it's very long, but for those that are newer or haven't meditated or don't have a solid meditation practice, may think otherwise. But in my experience, and from what others have also shared, that when we are meditating in a large group, it's much easier to sit for that period because you're surrounded with, the same energy from everybody else, right? Everybody else is also here to better their practice. They're also here to develop their mind. They're also here to strengthen their concentration and their mindfulness. So being around those people with the same mindset also helps. Plus, you don't want to be the one falling asleep in a group of 20, right? So it's a little bit easier. So I hope that when the time comes for the retreat, that it is fruitful and successful for many people. The schedule of the day is on the event page, so if you want to see how the schedule is for the day for our retreats, you can check that out on our Facebook page or our website. That way you have an idea. I think it's better to have an idea. I always put the schedule up, even though it's traditionally not freely shared in temples and monasteries, but I think it's beneficial. That way you have an idea of what to expect versus coming in blindly and being ordered to do whatever we're doing for that session, right? But I'm excited for it. I'm ready for it. We haven't had a retreat all year. We haven't had a retreat at all last year, obviously. So, and it'll be our first retreat in the new shrine. So it's going to be much more formal than usual, but I think it'll just add to the experience, I hope. Anyway, I'll stop there. Because I think I already talked too much. I did. So we'll have next class on the 25th. It'll be moved to 12 p.m. and we will discuss restlessness. And the last hindrance in October will be on doubt, which will be a pretty short class actually, because doubt isn't really that big of a topic. It's a big deal. It's just not big of a topic. And then I want to make sure I have time to cover go back and recover 3 meditation methods before our retreat. So after the hindrances, we will cover meditation on the breath, walking meditation, and mantra or chanting meditation. And then after that, we'll have our retreat on the 11th, which will be our last meditation class session for the year. And I think we'll take a break until after Lunar New Year, so sometime in February will be our next class. And usually we try to have a retreat at least twice a year, so the next retreat will be in April. No, May. It depends on what topic I choose for next year's meditation series. I know this year I intended to cover the Anapanasati Sutra, the discourse on the mindfulness of breathing, because it has 16 meditation exercises. And that was going to be the whole topic of the year and next year. But as we got to the third or fourth exercise, I decided to stop at the fourth exercise, because all the exercises after that is really not I don't want to say the word not helpful, but not entirely necessary for those who are not serious meditation practitioners. It is more for those who have a consistent, dedicated practice of meditation. So, and the majority of those that usually come and that I have interacted with don't have a consistent meditation practice. So I didn't want to go into something that's pretty serious in Buddhism for those that aren't entirely serious. Not to question their practice, but I just wanted to change it up so what I do teach, it will be most helpful for them. So the 5 hindrances I thought was going to be the next best thing, because the 5 hindrances are something every single person does go through. Whether you're new or very experienced, everyone will deal with one or more of the 5 hindrances in every single meditation session. So that is it for Sloth and Torpor. Such a weird word. Laziness. I'm just going to call it laziness. Okay, I'm going to stop. Any questions, concerns, emotional outbursts that I don't want to hear about? Okay, so we have time for a 20-minute sit of meditation, thankfully. So we will sit for 20 minutes, and then afterward, if anybody does come up with any questions, we will still be here. I'll still be here. And then after the class, as I mentioned earlier, we'll do a quick memorial prayer chant to remember 9/11. Okay. So feel free to adjust yourselves. I'm going to go sit on my seat because sitting on the chair is very uncomfortable for me. So adjust yourselves, stretch out if need be. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Welcome back. I just thought of that when we do our retreat, we should do some stretching exercises before we start. Since we'll be sitting down for 8 of the 12 hours. So, not all at one time, but still. Okay, how was that? Any questions that came up to you? Concerns? Emotional outbursts? I'm sorry? Laziness is good for meditation. Laziness, well, yes and no, if you know what to do with it, right? It's good because if you're able to relax enough and be comfortable enough to sit for a long period, that body laziness is good. Mentally, it's not good, because otherwise what are you sitting for? You're just sitting. You might as well do something productive. Go to work, take a run, go work out, right? If you're just sitting to be lazy, why are you sitting? What's the point, right? There has to be a point to meditation. Yes. Right. Motivation, lack of motivation. Right. Yeah. Because before I became a monk, I created a habit of meditating in the morning before I went to work. So I would get up at 5 to do meditation for 30 minutes and do some chanting, and then I'd start getting ready for work around 6-ish. So coming to the temple, becoming a monk was not that much different. I only wake up 30 minutes earlier, so I wake up at 4:30 to do meditation. The only difference is meditation's 90 minutes, and typically there should be walking meditation, which I 95% of the time don't do because I just want to go back to bed. But I tell myself I want to go back to sleep before I have to wake up again. But I never do, because once I'm up, I'm up. Like, I'm that kind of person that once I'm up, I can't go back to sleep. So my laziness is not doing the walking meditation. But in my defense, because we chant in the morning in the old shrine, walking around is too squeaky. So that kind of not annoys me, it's just, I feel like I'm walking on eggshells because I don't want to make too much noise. So I kind of skip it. That's my excuse, I'm sticking to it. But I guess, for me, it's my job to, right? It's my job to, I'm meditating for a specific reason, and one of those reasons is to create the experience and the knowledge to teach you, right? Because I'm never going to teach you something that I have not done myself or I don't fully understand, right? So in order for me to actually teach you and answer questions, I have to experience every possible experience and obstacle there is. Otherwise, I can't help you. So that's my motivation. Is one, I have to meditate to contemplate on what I'm learning, right? Because I have to be in this library of knowledge of Buddhism as a monk, but also to develop that concentration necessary for our lives now. Because now, if you think about it, in the Buddha's time, 2,600 years ago, even though they have their lifestyle at the time is so, like, what are you doing with your life? Like, what do you have to do, right? But because they had no social media, they had no entertainment of entertainment we have now, it was easy for them to meditate and attain some sort of enlightenment, right? So enlightenment was fairly easier than now, because now we're just constantly bombarded with entertainment and desires, right? We are addicted to stimulation, right? We have to have something. We are almost uncomfortable with our own selves when we are bored and have nothing to do. We're uncomfortable, right? We're like, I have nothing to do, I'm so bored. You're bored, you're uncomfortable because you have a craving, you have an addiction to stimulus. You have to do something, right? So I'm the opposite. I'm like, yes, I have nothing to do, I can just relax and do nothing. But that's because my lifestyle is very scheduled and very disciplined to a point where every minute, every hour of the day I have something to do, right? Versus those who, just have work, maybe you don't have a family, maybe you do have a family, and your lifestyle is still scheduled, but you still have at least more free than I do, at least, right? But everyone tries to put in things to do during their free time, right? And so meditation, is, people meditate for different reasons. It could be spiritual, it could be mental, it could be health, well-being, whatever it may be, right? So we have different reasons to meditate. But regardless of the reason, it's always to make the intent of why you're meditating before you meditate. That way you know why you're meditating for. Otherwise, you just sit. What are you doing? I'm sitting. Okay, but what are you doing? What are you contemplating about? What are you meditating on? What are you meditating for? What's your motivation, right? In Buddhism, we meditate to eradicate for many reasons, but the main reason is to eradicate the three poisons, which is ignorance, greed, and anger. Eradicating those poisons essentially puts you in a favorable or perfect mindset to attain enlightenment, or at least a form or a stage of enlightenment, right? That's our as Buddhists, hopefully, that's the motivation. It's to become enlightened, right? That's what do you practice in Buddhism for? To become a Buddha, to become enlightened. Right. And I always give the example of a foggy mirror, right? When we get out of the shower, our mirror is foggy. The mirror here represents our true self, our Buddha nature, our enlightened nature, right? And the fog is all the defilements, all the hindrances, all the poisons, everything that is obstructing our enlightenment, right? And so we use different things to clear the fog out of the mirror, right? Which is the tools we use in Buddhism, the different techniques and methods and teachings. So maybe use your wet towel to wash the mirror. That helps a little bit, but now it's streaky and there's little particles of the towel on there, right? So that doesn't help. And maybe use your hand to do it. Your hand's a little streaky, but you take away the little particles, so it's a little bit cleaner, right? And then you maybe use a dry towel, so that takes away the streakiness, but it's a little foggy, right? So you're using different things to help clean the mirror. In the same way in Buddhism, as you apply the teachings, right? As you actually do it and work for it, you slowly and slowly clear that self-mirror until you get to the point, right? Yesterday, a monk visited me from Dang Monastery in California, where I've been to for all my ordinations, and their tradition is Zen, Vietnamese Zen, and so our tradition here is Tin Dai, which is a combination of Zen and Pure Land, right? But our main form of practice here is chanting, right? And so for Zen, and especially at that temple, they do very little chanting, Like your chanting period is 5 minutes versus our 30 minutes, right? And so you're reminding me that all the sutras, all the things I'm chanting are just a map. They show you the destination, but they can't give you the destination, right? So same thing with meditation. I can speak thousands and millions of words, give you hundreds of techniques and examples, but if you don't use it, then you're not helping yourself at all, right? That's why I always emphasize that you really need to have a disciplined meditation practice. You don't have to sit for 90 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day, 45 minutes a day. You can sit for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, right? It's quality over the quantity here. Because you can sit for 5 minutes and have the most blissful sit of your life, right? Versus sitting for 30 minutes, but you're constantly distracted. So you've wasted 30 minutes, right? But as you practice and as you develop that concentration and that mindfulness, that awareness of what's going on in the mind and in the body, then you help eliminate that mental fog that will eventually get you to Buddhahood. Okay, any other questions? Cool. Well, as a reminder, next Saturday, the 18th, is our day of mindful working. So that's at 9 a.m. So I encourage everyone to please join us if you can. As usual, we'll have pizza. The only time I ever get to have pizza is whenever we do these volunteer days. So I'm excited for food because I love food. And that's part of the reason I forgot to announce this. I've been so busy trying to get that area ready as much as possible for our day. So I'm trying to make it as easy as possible for us. Luckily, it's very shaded. I'm very excited of how much shade there actually is there. When I was walking yesterday and looking around and making sure there's no stumps in the ground, I'm like, wow, this place is like very shaded, which is perfect because nobody wants to walk in direct sunlight when they're meditating, right? So I hope that my vision of how I want it to be actually happens. That way everyone that comes can enjoy it as much as I've enjoyed helping people put in the work to make it. So that's next Saturday. Then that's fine. If it doesn't turn out, then too, right? Impermanence, right there. Right. Well, I'm very simplistic, right? I'm very simplistic. It's just going to be one path going up and then going around and a quick zigzag to the side. That's just how I want it. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. It depends on how much work puts into it. But that's my idea. That's my vision. So on Saturday, once we clear up some of the remaining leaf and brush and stuff, and try to smooth out. There's a little bump towards the end that I need to push out. So once that's done, I can start marking the actual path. Anyway. Yeah. Right. I'm like, this is what I need you people to do. So make it happen. Yes. All right. So that's next Saturday, 9 a.m. to whenever, but preferably until we're done, 4 o'clock or so. And then lunch will be around noon. And then the following meditation class on the 25th is at 12 p.m., not 10 a.m. And if anyone plans on attending the retreat on December 11th, please be sure to register. You do have to register online, preferably. If you're not, then I'll make you register when you get here, but try to do it in advance so it makes our lives easier. Cool. Okay. Thank you. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha.